All right, let's do it.
Yeah. Are you ready to roll? I don't know if you can say that.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. You're ripping people off.
Round two.
Right. Yes, round two.
Fight. Let's go.
All right. What's up, YouTube?
LED Lighting Showdown. This is the first time, and you're getting it in 4 parts because we've got 20 lights to cover. First time we've ever taken this light versus this light versus this light versus this light. We just don't compare them that way. But we have 6 categories that we're ranking them all on.
And you know what? We're doing it live for a reason, because it tends to come out like I just can't control it. I just share my real opinion, like as refined as possible.
Yeah.
So it would have been a little more entertaining if we did a produced one, but this one, you're gonna get our real thoughts in real time about each one,
whole nine.
and you'll just see where it goes.
I mean, you can see our facial expressions in real time, and some of the lights you'll see.
Specifically when we reference them against each other.
Yeah.
So, all right, just for a little reminder for everybody, this is what we're gonna rank every single one of them, 0 to 10 each one of them. We're gonna average it all out.
Yes.
And then we'll see what it comes out. But spread, spectrum, control, mounting options, and aesthetic appeal. So, also price per par.
And price per par, and that's the biggest one, because each one, we're going down the list of the most expensive per par to the least expensive per par. We're in the next set of 5, which will make 10 total by the time we're done today. Each one of those get a point, and then you and I rate them. And Adam's back here averaging in real time, so the actual score at the end of the day is a surprise to us.
All right, and just quick review. This is why we're gonna rank them this way.
Yeah.
Price per par, people talk about that light's expensive, that one's cheap, that one's whatever. Really, if you take the total amount that it costs, divided, or the amount of, total cost divided by the average par it puts out, it gives an actual reference of is this expensive or not, right?
Yeah, and what we find as we go through all 20 of these is that conversation of is this light expensive and choosing the book by its cover type of cost is actually irrelevant.
Yeah, it's interesting. Book by the cover, exactly. Totally, it doesn't come up the way you would expect it would. All right, so spread, I know we all talked about it, we know about it, how it's not just the light itself and the par and strength, it's how you distribute that light over the tank. Spectrum, meaning quality of that light. I need it to actually do something. It's just not like random ass par that is going to light my tank. So control. How you control that light. How do you use the light to achieve a specific goal in your tank? Also important. Mounting options.
Super important. It was one of your top poll answers for reasons why you choose a light over another. Most people choose because of the mounting options.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to touch on this again for just a second. I was really surprised to see that mounting option was near the #1, if not #1 consideration when buying a light. But you know what? If it's a big pain in the butt to put on the tank, I don't want it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there you go. All right, aesthetic appeal. Lastly, this is one of those things I think a lot of people look over. You don't get to actually see what it looks like in many cases, but today you do. We're going to show you what it looks like in the tank. You can see them against each other, and I don't know.
I mean, aesthetic appeal applies to not just what the light looks like outside the tank and the whole package, but what it makes the tank look like. The shimmer, the color, the pop, the whatever you're looking for. That's very important. We'll rate that on a scale of 1 to 10.
If you don't care what it looks like in the tank, I think you missed the point of owning a reef tank. It's supposed to look awesome.
It's supposed to look awesome.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so first off, we'll look at last week here and the current rankings, 0 to 10. Drum roll.
Oh man, look at this. Okay, so 20 lights total. Here's your top 5 so far. Kessil A360X at the top of the heap.
Yep, 7.26, Orphic 5.58, Orphic 5.43, ATI 5.38, and I mean these are really close, 4.98 out of 10.
Yeah, right? And so the Kessil T365, go back and watch last week's video. Maybe we'll link to it at the end here so you can kind of see where all of these came from. But those 5 represent the most expensive cost per par because we're going most expensive to least expensive. That's how they fared out so far, but we've got 3 more of these episodes.
Yeah, I think it's actually really cool that we actually get to rank these 1 to 10 and all of these things. So you start to weigh it, and then for yourself, if you want to weigh something else, go ahead.
Yeah.
But you really get to hear why we chose these things. So we're going to start that today. And so the next in the series of number 6, I guess, most expensive cost per par. What is it?
This one right here.
Yep, this is what it is.
This is the E170 lighting option. So you've got the Aquatic Life T5 Hybrid with the Kessil A360X. In our testing, it's 6 inches off the top of the water, which is where we get this average par for every light that we're talking about. You have cost of bulbs, cost of the A360, cost of the Aquatic Life, $798.99. That works out to be $2.68 per par.
All right. So this turned out to be kind of like a revolutionary product a couple years ago because it took like all the challenges that a lot of LEDs had, which is like a little single source of light, and then filled it in, you know, with fill light, right?
Yep.
So blankets the whole tank in light. So we're gonna go down it. You're gonna see all the different things we said, but right off the bat, from a cost per a par number, what do we give it? 0 out of 10?
This one gets a 3.0. So a 3 for cost per par, and each one, I mean, 1 through 20, highest to lowest, it's 0.5 increments. So this one
scale it up?
This one is 3.
As one of the more expensive options out there is a 3.
Yep.
All right, so from spread, again, how we distribute that light. What are you gonna rank it before we see this? Oh, we're too fast.
Okay. So you guys saw it, but we actually gonna give our rankings before we go explain it. In which case, the spread on this one, 66% for me is some of the highest numbers that we've seen so far here in episode 2. I like this spread, 24-inch tank. I'm going with an 8.5.
All right, so here's the deal. You got a fat finger there. It's actually 69%.
Oh, 69%.
Yeah, so it's almost 70%. So on the outside edge of it is almost, it's 70% of the inside here. So 231 to 347. All right, so here's the deal. If I'd rated it beforehand, this is probably for me, I'm gonna give it a 9.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
And here's why. There are some that do better. Right, you'll see them later on in the series here.
69% is not our best.
Yeah, so 69 and 70-ish, 80 around there is the best possible spread. However, what we don't actually test with spread, because we haven't found a method that does this well, trust me, we've tried, is that the little dome here actually will distribute light really well. I think it was on its own 60%.
Yep.
However, it can have shadow effects because it is a single point of light. All right, so what this thing will do is not only am I going to get even spread from one edge to the other, but it is going to
fill those shadows.
Fill in the shadows, right? So now there isn't anything like blocking the light. So even though it's actually not as good total evenness from edge to edge, I'm switching 90.5. You got to change it up. And this is one of the reasons I like this one a lot.
It is better than a single point of light because you're adding this fill light. But I mean, you go look at some of these spotlight type lights that maybe wider lens than this little tiny guy here, but those things, because of their spotlight nature straight down, they spread like crap. So adding this type of thing in makes this this jumps up by I think 10%. So there we are.
Just for your reference point, the cost per par here is definitely, it is the Kessil A360X combined with the Aquatic Life. And the reason that we combine it is because we talk about it all the time.
As a single fixture.
It's one of my favorites. It's also the T5 Kessil combo, so we definitely wanted to make this in the mix. But you can definitely mix it with your AIs and all the other, basically any light you want that's inside here. All right.
Cool.
So in terms of spread, is there anything that could be improved on this thing you'd like to see?
Well, we talked earlier, and you do have one thing I will give it that I do like about the spread of this one is there are adjustable end plates, so you can adjust the spread. I did a whole Investigates episode about what the difference between the 16, the 18 that it comes with, the 24-inch. There's specific reasons and uses for each one of them. So I can actually spread this thing out to fit my tank. I do like that about the spread. If I could get the ATI reflectors inside of this thing, I mean, it would probably increase that percentage.
I'm sorry, I'm going back down to 9. I agree. So the reflectors in here just are really small, and they're nowhere near as good as the ATI ones. And so you could improve on this. Now, the actual performance of it's awesome, but it could even be better. So also, if there were probably fans in here, it would probably output more light. I don't know if that would affect the spread as much.
That's another Investigates episode you can check out. That we tested the fan speed and cooling of the T5 bulbs. But
and there's no splash guards on there, so I guess that you know, these will probably get dirty and impact the par output in your spread. But so there's a couple of things that we improve on here, but we gave it a 9 overall, and it's not surprising. I said this last week, actually. When you think of the historical gold standards of the combination of light that most people have been around for a long time, love the most, it is the halide T5 combo. And sometimes actually halide like VHO combo.
Oh yeah.
Right? But if you think about it, like this light is the closest thing to a halide as you can get, because that halide bulb might be this big, but inside of it is this tiny little bulb, tiny little thing, one single point of light. That is exactly what this is doing. It's doing it at an angle, 160-degree angle, I think.
130,
130?
160? Yeah, 130.
Okay, super wide angle, and creates that really sharp shimmer that you saw in last week's episode.
Yeah.
And then you dim it with the T5. So I think this is the closest to that gold standard, and halides just really are difficult to obtain, have all kinds of heat issues. I mean, I think if you're gonna ask me actually straight up, the nicest looking tank that our lighting combo I've ever seen has been the Reef Brite with the radium bulb inside of their like hybrid fixture.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, like, RT had that thing over his tank.
For a brief moment, I really considered going halide Reef Brite because that of all the tanks I've ever seen, that has been the sharpest looking tank that I've seen. I just don't want to deal with all the heat. All right, so move on.
So before we get into Spectrum, what are we going to rate it?
Oh, for Spectrum. All right. So Spectrum here, I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay, I already know that the Kessil is, I mean, we gave it high ranking scores on its own last week. T5s have been the gold standard for Spectrum that we've been basing all of our Spectrum tests on. This thing gives a 10 out of 10.
I agree, 10 out of 10. Same reasons. And so we know already that the different T5 bulbs produce a spectrum that produce results.
Yes.
Repeatable over a decade. Spectrum will not be your problem if you use T5 bulbs. Guaranteed, right? And then we also know that when you look at the output from the Kessil, it's almost identical spectrum to the ATI Blue Plus bulb.
Yeah, really
and
good.
Mixed together, you're going to see in a second, they look exactly the same, and they blend perfectly with almost no difference in our dynamic spectrum. There isn't anything better than this in terms of spectrum.
No, there is an improvement that we'll get to here in a second, which I might drop my score down maybe by a 0.5, but we'll see. But this next slide here is a look at that spectrum. So basically, what we're looking at here is on the left is 2 Blue Plus bulbs plus your Kessil. So that's 4 Blue Plus bulbs plus the Kessil at our BRS recommended setting. You see how wide that is.
Super wide blue spectrum.
Yeah, and you see the peak, you see a hump over here in like the 450 area. And then on the right is that true actinic and Blue Plus bulb with the Kessil.
So if you're looking closely, what you'll see is that purple band.
Yeah.
So that's that violet color and near UV. When you add in the actinic bulbs, that's what you get.
And it pulls away from, all it does is pull the ratio away from that 450, little hump there, and brings it over to the other side of 420.
All right, so you widen out that band, and it definitely gives like a violet or look to the tank, but not that artificial red that you add when red and blue make purple. Adds a violet look to the tank.
But all right, in all of our testing and in all of the episodes that I did in lighting over the last few months or what have you, our goal is the widest between 400 and 500 that we can achieve. I mean, you can see saw just how wide that is.
So my preference here is actually that one on the right that uses the actinic bulbs, the true actinics, and you said today yours was actually the other one.
Yeah, I think in the end when we tell you how we're going to use this light, I just Blue Pluses,
So it's the gold
that
standard.
little bit of 450 brings out some pop.
So one of the things here I'm going to say real quick is a lot of people don't like using the actinic bulbs because it reduces the PAR, right? It does. The PAR from the actinic bulbs is about 30% less than the Blue Plus bulbs.
Anything.
I know that because we tested it. However, 30% sounds like a lot. However, when you average it out with another set of Blue Plus, and then you average it out with a Kessil 2, it ends up with like 8% less PAR.
Yeah.
If you can tell the difference between a tank that is 200 PAR and 185, bravo.
Wow.
Right? That is never going to be the difference between success and not.
No, and if I wanted to, I can adjust for it or account for it by turn that up a little bit. Yeah.
All right, there you go. All right, so Spectrum, did you change? We could do a couple of things here of improved. I do actually have a couple of ones.
Okay, so improvement on the Kessil A360X on its own and the T5s that we saw on their own last week. I think in both cases we said it would be nice to have a little more 455, 450 peaks to get some of that pop out in the corals. The Kessil does it okay. It's just not a whole lot of it there. So because I like that really fluorescent pop, and a dimmable option, which they have, would be a nice option too. 9.5, because I do miss a little bit of that pop.
Okay, so if you give me the option, I would crank up the 450 range just a little bit if I could, but I'm going to keep it the 10 because there's nothing out here that is does this as well.
Yep.
Nothing mixes it as well. Nothing has as wide of an offering, as even, and blends it better. This is the best.
You got me on the blending. The Kessil blends the best that we've seen. I'm back to it.
There is a way to improve it, but that doesn't mean that if you're weighing it against its competitors on the Spectrum, best.
Yep, I forgot about the blending.
All right. So, and then the mounting options.
So, mounting options here. Let me think back to what there's available and give it a score. Does have legs. They attach to the frame. It does have a wall mount. It does have a hanging kit. I'm going to give it an 8 on mounting options.
I'm going to give it a 6. You have to hang it or find contraptions to hang it from.
Okay.
It's not as simple as just put it on the tank, and it could be if they wanted to.
Well, yeah, because the mounting height, the optimal mounting height we found for this thing, isn't out of the realm of putting legs on your tank.
Yeah, you could just set it on there. So that if you can just set it on there and it's a mounting height fits that option should exist. I'm gonna give it a 6 for that reason.
Bump me down to a 7. You'll see why. You'll see why in this next slide here.
Okay, so here they are. This is how you mount it.
So you do have a hanging kit, which you can go to the ceiling. You do have on the left here, you have the legs, and these legs get attached to the stand if you have a stand that you can attach them to. Some people don't. And then you also have the one on the right, which is this new wall hanging kit, which I thought was really cool. The only thing is because of the way that bracket from the wall works, you can only come off of the wall like 3 3/4 inches or so.
Yeah, so you got to put it right up against the wall, or I guess you could build it off of the wall if you wanted to.
Yeah, you could put some 2x4s and bring it off the wall.
But note those arms, that like kind of suspension bridge type it's a cool apparatus. Idea. Yeah, it looks nice, man.
I could use this for a lot of other things.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think as we're going through these is like how you can repurpose for some of the lights that don't have good options. You can repurpose these for other things. So that for me sums it up for about 6 because I'm gonna have to mount it on my wall, hang it from the ceiling. All of them require some kind of hanging kit to be able to do it. It means I'm gonna see a lot of wires and stuff. There isn't a way to just set it on there, and it's kind of big. It's not very heavy, so you can hang it from just about anything.
Yeah, I mean the longer fixtures will get heavier, but in that I can't, I might have to change my score here because of that. Like when you look at the shadow overflow box that we have on the ULM tanks, it sets that tank off of already you're past that 3-inch range. So I'm gonna have to account for that. But an improvement here on the mounting options, I'd like to see legs, and I think like we said early on, legs. This isn't out of the realm for the height for legs, in which case, I'm 7. Is that what I had, Adam? 7? Put me at a 7 if I didn't.
All right. I'd also like to see a longer wall bracket so you can mount it a little further out from the tank. If you have to build up the bracket to make it stronger, so be it. But I'd like to see that.
Cool.
All right. So aesthetic appeal. Only reason we have these things, right? And so let's just go ahead and see what it looks like on the top of the tank.
Yeah.
All right. So this is what it looks like on top of the tank. I mean, there's a hanging kit. There is 2 cords that come off of it. But in general, it looks pretty sharp.
I mean, it does. The cord is kind of an issue for me. One off of one side, one off of the other. And then another one off the back for the Kessil.
Yeah, 3 cords.
That is solvable, though. I mean, you can solve that with the end plates. But, right here, if you don't have the end plates and this is all you have,
we're supposed to vote before.
Oh, shit. Okay.
We're supposed to vote before. So here it is. I mean, we're messing this up.
We are.
All right. So I'm going to give this aesthetic appeal for me like a 9.
Okay.
I'll explain why in a second.
Okay. aesthetic appeal outside and inside the tank combined. It looks better inside the tank than outside for me, so I'm at an 8.
All right, yeah, maybe I went too high. We'll see what it looks like in the tank now. All right, so this is why I like it, and this is going to be totally up to you, but you're going to see a lot of shimmer today. You saw it last week, and one of the things you saw was the Kessil alone has this really high contrast, sharp shimmer. And then you also saw the options like the Orphic compacts and stuff that have tons and tons and tons of LEDs.
Yeah.
Doesn't really have a shimmer, more so that it has kind of like this fuzz to it. Yeah. There's so many intersecting shimmer lines, it just kind of gives it fuzz.
Well, we saw the Kessil on its own last week, which was, for me, just heavy shimmer. A little too heavy. I like how this is muted. And this is one of my T5 LED is kind of one of my favorite combos. You can also see here, like, your greens, your oranges, they do pop out. If we had that 455 spectrum peak, you'd probably see more of that orange fluorescence. You'd probably see a little brighter green. But all in all, like, this is, even with a little tealy color, this is, I like the look of this.
So, Dave, none of these are all totally untouched, right? No saturation or anything to them? Okay, so all the shots you're gonna see are just the way that the Canon shot it. Sometimes, you add some things to make it look a little bit, the camera doesn't really pick up fluorescence as well as you'd like. So you try to tune it to what the eye's actually seeing. So it actually looks even better in person. But in this case, this is as close to the shimmer that I personally like. And there's a lot of people out there probably saying, like, that's too busy, it's not enough, or whatever. It's all your own personal appeal. You're going to see different variants of shimmer today. And I think none of them will be like 100% perfect, but one of them will be like 80% of what you're looking for.
Yeah, this is for sure my favorite shimmer. So.
I would call myself like a total shimmer freak, man. Like, this is one of the things that really bothers me, and it's because I've seen and had the Kessil or the halide shimmer of the past, and so I know what that looks like. It is my favorite, and I try to emulate that, and I'm happiest when I've achieved it.
True.
So
we do have to go back and hit control because we've skipped it.
Oh, we did.
And there's really no, there's no pictures of control here, and that's probably why we skipped it. But as we said last week, I think with the T5 on its own, you can't mess this up. On and off functionality. There's 2 channels. You turn them on, you turn them off. That's simple. Kessil was on its own. Also, control-wise was really nice because I do have the knobs. We did dock the Kessil on its own last week because it doesn't have all of the available color channels in the knob. I do have to get the Wi-Fi dongle or the spectral controller to access them. So in control, like, you can't mess this up. I'd like to see, I don't know, an included dimmer thing because it does have it. Gosh, 7.5.
All right, if the purpose is for control is to make sure that you got it right and you can grow coral, 10 out of 10.
Oh,
if the purpose of the control is to like flip switches and have fun with it like it's a toy, like a 4. It's not 10 out of 10 because, again, we talked about how you need to buy accessory stuff to get the UV and whatnot out of this one. Yeah. But, almost everybody's going to buy it, so I don't know how big of a dock that is. So I'll give it a 9. I'm going to give it a 7.5, being that 10, if your goal is to grow coral. If you want to treat it as a toy, it's a 5. I'll meet it in the middle because it is a hobby. People like to have fun with the stuff they're doing. You should set it and forget it, but I understand why you want to, kind of tune it in and find your perfect appeal.
Yeah. All right. So how would we use this? And then we'll get a final score.
Okay, so Adam's calculating the final score here. How would you use this light? What would you recommend it for to other people?
If you guys haven't seen the E170 and like a 24 by 24 inch cube with this 24 inch fixture in a single Kessil, there's no denying that that is the way I would use it, specifically for SPS dominated tanks. It might be a bit much for like your LPS and softies because I can do that with the Kessil alone or maybe even the T5 alone. So I'm at a solid mixed tank with this thing. If I had a 48-inch tank, I just have 2 Kessils and the 48-inch fixture, and it kind of scales like that for me. So SPS dominated systems, just 24 by 24, or double up and get the longer ones and go 48 by 24. Solid SPS dominated.
Can you go back to the video of this tank, the wide shot first? All right, so those of you who don't know, if you're asking where I'd use it, this is in my office. This is the light that produced this tank inside of, actually it mostly looked like this at like 14 months, but I think we're around 18 now. So let's look inside of it. The corals are growing up the sides of the glass. And there's just, it produces results.
If you handed
it
this
looks
to
nice.
me, like there
I'd
it
use
is.
this in any case. I'd recommend this to anyone for anything. The only caveat to that is if you have like only an LPS tank, it's probably too much light, in which case I'd probably get the dimmable one and turn it down. So it is not the cheapest option, but this option produces really solid results and looks really, really sharp.
Proof's in the pudding. There it is.
All right, so what's the total?
7.38.
What does that make it?
That just ran up to the top.
Number one. All right, what was the number one prior?
4 something.
Oh, no.
A360X.
What was that?
What was it? Yeah.
So, we're just barely beat the Kessil by
look
itself.
at it.
I'm wondering about this ranking system now. Because this one, I would use this. I guess, you know what? With the Kessil, I would use that thing on its own for all the reasons we described with the LPS tanks and whatnot.
I think we justified it well.
So we're going with the SPS tanks. Dude, awesome.
This is now number 1.
It's also, I think it's good representation that even though I love it, it's not a 10 out of 10 because it is one of the more expensive options out there, has a bunch of cords, although I still love it. I'd use it all over the place. All right, next one, XHOs.
Boom,
right.
this guy.
All right, so this one was super interesting. This was like the find of the year. I don't know. It was really, really unexpected results.
Yeah, we didn't expect what was going on here. Cost per par, we did the Lumi lights, we did the Lumi Light Pros, and we did this one. And you'll see those other options, in the next few episodes when we get there. But cost per par wise, this thing at 6 inches off the top of the tank, we have a 357 average par, 835.85 for 5 of these things, puts it at $2.34 per par.
So that puts it at number 6 in terms of cost, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, 7. No, 8.
Yeah, 3.5 for the score on cost per par.
All right, so here's the thing. Everybody is familiar with XHOs. People bolt them onto their T5s. People do add them into onto their Radions.
Yep.
They add them into like all kinds of stuff. You're looking for that extra pop. You see them at the coral trade shows all the time because they make those little frags just pop in person, right?
Yeah.
So you see them constantly. What I'd never used them is their bracket. So you can get like a little bracket and then you can put 5 of them together. And this thing just like kind of blew us away in terms of results. And so a lot of people are like, oh, what was the price on the total price on it again? Like $800?
Yeah, 835.
$835. Okay, so that is not a cheap light, right? But look at it. It covers the entire tank. This is about as close to like a panel of T5s over your tank using LEDs as you're gonna get, right? And some of those big panels that you've seen before don't actually perform like that. This one does.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
this is, I mean, look at the comparison here in width.
Yeah,
It's
about
almost
the same.
like a 4 bulb.
Yep.
This is a 6 bulb. So to get that kind of spread and to get that kind of a spread, which we're gonna see next, out of something that's that small, I think the T5 4 bulb last week hit like 50-some% or 40-some%. I forget what it was, but it's pretty phenomenal. When Brent, I remember when Brent brought this to me, and he says, "You won't believe what this thing does."
Brent's picky too.
And we went and looked, and we were like, "Holy crap! That thing spreads the light better than anything we've seen."
So I'm gonna ask you right now, like, a bunch of you have already totally written this thing off. Like I've never even considered that as an option to anything else.
As a full fixture?
Open your mind for just a second, because it's not about whatever anybody ever told you before. It's all in the results. All of it is in, like the data. You can make your own decision, and like this is a legit contender. Right, and you're going to see why in just a second. So from price per par, it was number 8.
Yep.
And
Gives
so
it a 3.5.
From spread, what are you going to give it?
All right, spread-wise, I mean, it's hard to not think back to the days when Brent was running around the office and saying, "Oh my God, the Reef Brites! Oh my God, the Reef Brites!" And I think that it's hard to pin down which one shows better than that. So for me, spread-wise, this is right up there at like 9.5.
Boom. All right, I'm gonna go 8.7. All right, so here's the deal. There's a couple of things. One, let's see the actual spread here from beginning or outside to center. It's 381 in the center and 264 on the outside. Difference from the outside to the center, 69%.
There you go.
All right, so you're going to see a theme today that a lot of the lights here actually did pretty good on spread. And for reference point, some of them do as little as 30%. Some of them do as good as 80%. So this is in the higher end of spread. But again, just like I talked about with the T5s over there, like this light is almost the size, at least wide, is the tank. And it's also front to back pretty big. So shadows, we don't really measure that in the spread. So shadows are not a thing when you got a whole bank of light like this. And the data also supports it in the spread.
Yeah, one improvement I could probably see on this, and we could improve the spread. I think we tried. I mean, you can move these things out. So to increase that front to back spread, I should be able to fan a few of these out. Otherwise, it would be nice to see them make maybe just a little wider bracket, because we've seen what Lumi lights do at 2 inches when you cover the entire 24-inch front to back length. The spread was phenomenal there. Could you imagine what the percentage we could get if these were spaced out with like an inch in between them, a little further?
Yeah. So like you said, you can actually aim these things. So from a spread perspective, it's like one of the only things that all 5 of these I can twist and actually aim to different areas of the tank to increase. Got a par meter, you can perfect that. So this is the only one I can think of that allows you to do something like that.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. In terms of the Lumi lights and the other brands from Reef Brite, one of the things that they all look kind of the same. So just for a reference point, this one has stronger LEDs and less of them, which will create more shimmer because there's like brighter points of light. And also the spectrum in the blue is wider.
Yeah, and it does have the reflectors in here too. Because the Lumi Light Pros don't have the reflectors, so you get a lot more light in the tank. And actually we looked at what a single bulb XHO looks like versus a single bulb T5. And you can see here in the next slide, spread-wise, on the left, you got your single actinic bulb at 60% spread, so you're seeing like 95 in the center, 57. So not only higher par by like 20 par, here on the right, T5 bulb 58%, but lower par. Yeah,
so actually, Dave, so here's the thing, is we get that question all the time.
Yeah.
Like, can one of these bars replace that T5 bulb?
That tells me yes. If I'm measuring off a spread and par, then yes.
Yeah, in fact, the spread is actually roughly the same, or better, actually. It's like 2% better from this thing, and it's actually more par. It does cost more, but I don't have to replace the bulbs. I don't have to bring the bulbs to the hazardous waste center for all the mercury in it. I don't have to break them or all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
So you get rid of the old technology. It does cost more, but the question of can it replace the T5 bulb, I would challenge anybody who said otherwise.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you'll see that in your hybrid solution to your tank at home.
Yeah, so when I gave it 8.75, it was just because some of them actually measure a little bit more even, again, going all the way up to 80. But I think that they could make the simplest change to this, which is what you just mentioned, is give us another bracket here that spreads it out a little wider,
I think
right?
so.
And then I would probably be able to get that, maybe even better than 80.
I think so. And I said 9.5 in the beginning, but we had originally we said, well, what could we improve on spread? And we said nothing. But I actually think that you could improve that to an 80% type of light if we had that type of. All you have to do is make a new bracket.
$3, a dollar's worth of metal would get us there, I think.
9.
All right, so there we go. All right, so in terms of spectrum coming out of it. All right. So the spectrum, it's just like a fixed spectrum. You can adjust. There's for a reference point, what we measured here is 2 50/50s, which is a mix of the actinic blues and their whites, with 3 actinic blue, and that was the color that everybody here liked. So that is the mix: 2 50/50s, 3 actinic blues, and this is what the spectrum looks like coming out of it.
So I'm going to rate this before I look.
Oh,
and I'm going to say 7.75.
I concur. I'm gonna go 7.75. All right.
Okay, so here's the reasoning why, though. I mean, so we look at the Reef Brite XHO, actinic blue on the left, and that's on its own. It has, and this is probably why that you see them in frag swaps. This is probably why you see them added to the T5 bulbs. It has that 450, 450, 455 range, bright fluorescent colors. That's where all that pop comes from. You see the XHO 5050 on the right, so you get that, a little bit of cool white color in there, but it's still pegged. It's got that 450 peak on there, in which case, I have seen wider spectrums here, and what you'll see in our custom spectrum here shortly is it does show itself in a little thinner total spectrum range when we add them both together.
All right, so see them both together.
So this is that setup. You said 3 actinic blue strips, 2 50/50s, and here's what that looks like on its own. Go ahead. So the ATI or the T5 Blue Plus bulb is outlined here, and you'll see a little narrow,
a little thinner,
below 450, and a little narrow around like the 500 range. So 7.75, because if this were wider, it would hit all the points for me.
Okay, so also though, the blending on this is actually really good. So is that what that other photo is here?
Yeah, this is the first time that we actually get to see blending. So we did the dynamic blendum spectrum test. We didn't get it on the last one because we didn't test it in that manner. But here you see 10 points of spectrum testing, just randomly pushing the spectrum button, and shooting 10 points as the flow goes. You should see in some LEDs, most LEDs, you should see this bouncing of the spectrum range up and down and up and down. Here, it's almost flat. There's a little bit,
this
somewhere
is near T5 performance, and it's because they haven't chosen to use 8 million colors of
there's 2
LEDs.
colors.
Yeah. And there might be 3, but there's definitely only a few, and there's so many of them, and they're spread over such a good area, and they're not focused with these lenses, so and they're even reflected around with the reflectors, so it just blends them really good, near T5 performance. So a little thinner, looks awesome, blends near perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the 7.75.
7.75.
All right, and so control of the XHOs. This one is an area where they could do better.
Okay, so right off the bat, I'm going to give this one XHO specific. I'm going to give this one a 5.4.
4.6.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about the control here. Specifically with the XHO, the Lumilight Pros and the Lumilights, they come with, at least they come with a dimmable switch. Here with the XHOs, I have to choose beforehand. I mean, it's nice because there are control options like your standard, let's show this one here, your standard dimmable switch in the left, one for each light. You do have a Bluetooth control, which is in the bottom, and that controls 2 lights. And then you can get the 0 to 10 volt like Apex control on the top right, which also can control 2 lights. So I would either need 5 individual little dimmer switches, which
they're $17.
Yeah, and they're 17. That's not a terrible thing, but I can set them all to like number 4 and then control it with a timer. The Bluetooth control I actually have an app for, and I would need 3 of them for 5 lights because 1 can control 2. Same thing with the Apex. Those are about $170 a pop. So. It is, for me personally, it's cost prohibitive to me to not get get the $17 inline, and it's not included here, which is why this gets a lower ranking for me. I have to go pick up a separate control. So if they have these control options, if they can make them cheaper, or if they can make one to rule all 5, I'm in. You got me.
You convinced me. I'm going 5.2. Okay. All right. So here's the thing: is the dimmer will work. So you can just plug it in, and it'll just be on. And the dimmers are $17. You get one for each one. It definitely adds to the cost. It makes it plug and play, too, like my T5s. But it's super easy to use and plug and play. All right. So it's those the options that you're used to, which is the Bluetooth thing next to your phone, or being Apex ready into the 0 to 10. Those are the things where a lot of people really want. And they're like, what was that? You said like $140 or something?
Yeah, like $140 to $170 for a single Bluetooth.
Yeah, and it only controls 2, so you got to control all these. Yeah. That is just a lot of money to add into this thing. It shouldn't be that hard. And I to be honest, I think that they're adding an option where you can buy one that controls all 5. I think you're going to see that in the near future. So if that comes out, I'm going to raise it a point. I'll go back up to like 6.5 or something.
Yeah, if they came out with it and it was still cheaper than putting more like 2 together, I'll go up by 2.
3 adds so much cost to it, it's hard to buy. But with just a little $17 dealie, it's irrelevant to the cost of the whole thing. So, all right, so there we go with control here. And so that was kind of some of the things we'd like to see the Bluetooth and
those are the improvements.
Like Apex ready stuff
Hopefully
get a lot cheaper.
They fix that, It sounds like they are.
All right, so mounting options. All right, what do you give it?
I mean, we just said that we want these, we would like an option that spreads these out a little further. It has, I can't debate what I'm going to say first. 7.23.
6.2. I'm still going low.
All right.
Okay, so there aren't a whole lot of options. They should have there's no excuse to not have a bracket like this that just has a leg on this.
The optimal mounting height for this thing was 10 inches, what we found. That's again in the realm of legs.
There's no reason this thing couldn't have a leg on it.
Yep.
And so should have legs. There is some options out there that give you that like 2-inch mounting height, but I probably wouldn't use that with this light.
Yeah, let's check this out. So you do have the brackets. So there's a 5 bracket, a 3 bracket, and then you have the legs. But those legs, they are legs, and you can use them on your tank, but it mounts it at like 2 inches off of the top of the water, which when I crank these things up, that makes the par just astronomical. And then there's a hanging kit. The one thing I don't like about the hanging kit, here's an improvement. So I do like that I can fit 5 of these because they're thin. I can fit 5 of them on a 5 bracket. The Lumilight Pros are wider. I can't fit more than 4 on a 5 bracket. So I do like that I can use each one of these holes here. The only thing for me is this single point here. And I found this when we were trying to mount them and make them look good for camera. It makes it so it's like a pivot point. So it kind of rotates front and back.
It's one of those things where like how heavy the cords are often kind of mess it up.
Yeah, for sure. So if they added an additional hook place here and made it 2 on each side rather than 1, I'm sold. I can balance that thing out.
I agree. So mounting options, I'd love to see a 2-point attachment to it. I'd love to see a leg kit. I guess I'd love to see, like, you can obviously use the wall brackets from the other options we talked about today. So I don't know how many people need to make the exact same thing for the exact same purpose. But I'd love to see that kind of stuff. So that's our ranking. So aesthetic appeal. This is where this thing shines, man.
Oh, man.
Right? Okay, so on the tank, it actually looks pretty clean. So you're going to see there's like 5 cords hanging off the side there, and you might not even see them if I didn't point them out.
True.
But actually, if you come back to me real quick, Dave. So these are not like your standard power cords. They're actually really thin.
They are
so they like, you know, bind up together like really small. So like if you put a couple of zip ties or whatever on it, it's going to be the thickness of like 1 or 2 cords.
In my Investigates, I did this, I took this wire, it opens up, kind of a wire shield, and that actually looked like, it looked a little thicker than your standard power cord, but it was super clean.
Yeah, I agree. So if you go back to the photo, the fixture itself over the tank, I tend to like fixtures that are the same width as the tank, not only for performance and getting spread and eliminating shadows, but cool. I don't know, it just kind of looks like it matches the tank. But you can see the fluorescence already in the tank itself.
This tank is...
Okay, this is where this thing shines. So there's a reason why they show these that people who sell corals for a living show them using these lights in person. It's because it probably sells more coral because they look awesome.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so what does it look inside the tank?
I mean, compared to what we just saw with the more muted Kessil and T5, the shimmer here looks less.
Significantly less.
I'm barely noticing in the shadow areas the shimmer. Which, for some people that could be a little more pleasing, not so heavy shimmer. What I'm focused on here is the colors, like that orange Monte cap and some of these greens and the pops. Like that 450, 455 range pops these colors like nothing else. And the 50-50 balances it out.
Okay, so I'm telling you again, this is shot by the Canon with no settings, special settings or anything done to the photo. this actually looks way better in person even. Like
for sure.
It just pops. So I'm going to tell you that when we put this thing over this tank, there was 6 of us standing around it, and there was a uniform agreement that everybody said, this light makes this tank look the best in terms of color.
It was true.
Like all of our mouths were dropped open. It was really, really impressive. But you can see here, all of these individual LEDs, this is probably the best example of what happens to the shimmer, is 8 million of these little lines all combined together to create almost no lines. And it's kind of like a fuzz.
It's a little fuzz.
It's got a very T5 look to it.
But there's a minimal amount of LED colors. I don't have these, quote, full spectrum, ranges and stuff here, in which case it makes that shimmer, like, you remove the possibility of a disco ball effect like we saw in the dynamic spectrum blending. There's no movement in the spectrums, which is gains a point for me, which actually we forgot to rake this one. But the color pop, the shimmer's pleasing to me. It looks okay for me outside the tank. I like other fixtures more so than this one. I think I'm at an 8.3 on the aesthetic appeal.
Wow, I'm really perplexed here because I care the most about what it looks like in the tank. The color, I had never seen anything that produces the color better than this, and I wish the camera captured the extreme ends of fluorescence the way the human eye does. But I don't have any shimmer, or very little shimmer here. I'm gonna give it a high 8.5 because like the color is so awesome, man. I can't get around it. And that's one of the things that most of you out there are like a lot of people just give the shimmer up, don't care. I want the corals to look as aesthetically pleasing as possible.
So where would I use it? That color is the perfect accent to another light or other lights. If for me we saw that spectrum, I'd like to see it a little wider. It does hit those really cool pop, but I feel like I'm lacking in some of the other stuff. So I would use this. I've never thought that would ever consider these Reef Brite strips as a single fixture on their own. So because that surprised me, I could see myself using this as my light only. And what I really like about this is they scale the size of these things all the way out to 72 inches. So if I have a 24-inch tank, a 36-inch tank, a 48-inch tank, a 72-inch tank, I can put 5 strips on the whole thing and be done. And this cost actually goes down as I get bigger. So that cost per part, you'll actually see decrease as you size them up. So SPS dominated systems, totally proved that in the 24 by 24 inch cube with this. And then I can dim them down to hit my LPS. So I think there's an all around well light for all sizes of tanks, 24 to 72.
So for me, what would I use it on it? Let me just say this straight up. I would use it.
I would use it.
I would have never thought that I would say it. So I knew that I would use it for adding it on to bolting it on to my SunPower fixture. If I owned a SunPower fixture, if I couldn't afford it day one, I would just wait until I could, but I would definitely add this. The T5 bulbs are like notoriously kind of this weird teal color, and this thing counterbalances that and brings in fluorescence, and we'll add a little bit of shimmer along the way too. So I would use it for that, but everybody knows that one already. As a fixture like this, for a brief moment, I considered using it on my own tank because just like a little panel of these things above the tank was like a really attractive solution, and I know it's going to make it look awesome. The shimmer just wasn't enough for me. So I would add in Kessils or something to it, and ultimately I did do that. So, and I'd also use it as a replacement for T5s. And I wouldn't have thought that I would say that.
That's pretty
but in the end, like, you look at the data, again, you debate it with all your buddies, you come back, you look at the data again, and like, give me a reason why you wouldn't do it. And so this is actually one of the interesting things. So for those who've been following along, you'll know that that's actually what I did with my own tank. Is I took these things, they're going to make the colors look super awesome in the tank, and then I'm going to add in Kessils for the shimmer on my own tank. When I selected, I could take anything home, and like we debated endlessly on all the different things that we could do here. And when it came to myself, what I like is I'm going to use these to replace the T5s in my favorite T5 Kessil combo. And that is the mix I'm going to do.
Yep.
And a lot of people have said this sentence to me: why would you supplement LEDs with LEDs? And I think that you just need to erase that from your mind, because it's not LEDs versus LEDs. It's a single point of high contrast light, you know, mixed with a diffused widespread light. It doesn't matter if it's LEDs or T5s, right? So in this case, I am going to I replaced my halide with the Kessil, and I'm going to replace the T5s with these. Doesn't matter LED, LED. It means I'm looking for a solution, and I'm blending the available technology to try to achieve the color, the spread, and the visual appeal that I'm looking for, including that natural looking shimmer.
Yep.
So for me, that's where I would use it and all these things. And I just got to say, when I say where I'd use it, I am using it. And so end of story there.
There you go.
All right, so what is the total number that we got out of this?
This one came out as a 6.75, which puts it
third place?
Third down from the top. Yep.
All right, so this one's pretty interesting, actually. So this is a really good point. So this thing came out, I'm rating these things, and it came out at 6.675. And you would think if I was rating it and I was going to use it myself, it'd be the top, but it isn't, because I know I have unique desires, right? And so do you. So when you're looking at all this stuff, there isn't just necessarily one winner. There will be one, I think, that actually, if you're taking the 80-20 of the masses, will be the best. But make sure you're looking, man. What are your desires? And then you solve them, and you know, like, forget what everybody else says. You know, like, just take the data, apply it to what you want to achieve, and then you'll get it. So 6.65 puts it number 3. Here we go. All right, so we got another one.
3 more left here. This next one should go pretty quick.
All right, so the T5 bulb here.
All right, so up next, this guy right here. So last week you heard us talk about the 4-bulb T5. That was the second most expensive cost per par. Here today we have the 6-bulb T5. And it's actually interesting that the lower amount of bulbs is actually a higher cost. So it'll be interesting to see in the next couple episodes where the 8-bulb ATI comes in. But with that, the average par, 6-bulb, we have 285 par, and a cost of with bulbs, with fixture, $620.95, puts us at a $2.18 cost per par.
All right, so here's the deal. We talked at length about this exact fixture last week. This one just has two more bulbs. It's the same thing. So I'm going to burn through this thing.
Let's get through it. So right off the bat, this one gets a 4.0 cost per par.
All right, at $2.18 per par. You can see this started at like $3.60. So we've already come down by a pretty significant number. All right, so in terms of spread, I gave it a 6. Or no, what is this numbers here?
So this was those are last week's numbers. So basically, we're kind of in the same boat here. Maybe you're not.
Oh, probably went up because it's a little wider now.
It's a little wider.
All right, well, let's look at it actually. So from the center to the outside.
This is interesting. It's 380 in the center, 191 in the outside at 50%, meaning last week the 4-bulb, it was lower par, but it was 54%.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
so that's interesting. So 7-inch mounting height and 50% from the center to the outside. So it does fall off more than the ones that we've talked about today. And actually that's so interesting here because it's 50%. You would have assumed, like, I mean, for real, Dave, if you can come back to me, you would assume that this wide angle light would have had way more even than this thing or even the Kessil T5 Hybrid. And it just doesn't. The data shows it. Now this is the gold standard. This is the thing that will produce results in your tank for sure, but it can be improved on. And it doesn't have to be T5s at all. So that's actually, I'm super glad we actually went through that. This is the spread of bulbs that we actually put in it too, just for your aware. It was 6 bulbs. 2 blue plus, 4 blue plus, 1 coral plus, and 1 actinic.
So last week I was at a 4 for the spread on the 4-bulb. Here, actually lost some percentage here, so I think I'm at a 3.8.
In terms of spread, I mean, I had 6. I'm gonna go up. I'm gonna go to 6.5. I guess. I don't know. Well. I mean, it's 50%, I guess. I mean, I've got to erase what I did last week because we're evolving our knowledge as we go. I guess I'm going to have to give it, it's 5.9. All right, so we're going to move on. From Spectrum, we all know this is awesome. That mix of bulbs produced this super, super wide band of spectrum.
This is the gold standard that we have been judging every light off of.
This is the widest, like when we're using that blue plus the actinic plus the coral plus, you get the benefits of like everything. And then is it blended?
Let's find out if it's blended. Well, you'll never see anything shift here throughout the 10 points.
No, this is actually going to put me to sleep. It's so
it's
even.
just bland. This is the gold standard or whatever standard you want to say. This is the top tier of spectrum blending because it's T5. There's no shimmer.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. Last week you saw some of them just all over the place. So it's kind of like watching that shimmer. When you get to see these things side by side as we're talking, you can see the difference between that Kessil shimmer, between the multi-light shimmer like this one. You can see all the different things. And in that one, like hopefully we'll see one today that has more different pore blending, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
Because that one's obviously perfect.
It's just flat.
So from a spectrum perspective,
I think I docked this one because you go back, you look at that spectrum, and it's again with T5s. There's just not that 450, 455 super fluorescent. It's more teal green. I'll have to dock it 1.5 and a 0.45, so 8.76. For spectrum.
I'm gonna give it the same 9 that I gave. You could add it if you could add that 450 somehow with one of these XHOs. That'd be awesome.
You'd be done.
All right, so control, and we're not gonna harp on this one again. This is the thing. If you care about control because you want a toy, it's like 0. You plug it in the wall with a timer.
On off.
Yeah, on off. If you care about control because you want to achieve a desired result with coral and grow it,
it's a 10.
It's a 10. It plug it in the wall and you succeed. End of story, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it the same thing I gave it last week, which was a 9, and have a 0.10 volt ability to dim it would
control.
be nice.
Yep.
I don't know why they're not apex ready at this point, but they should be.
Yeah, I'm at a 9 also.
All right.
Last week, same.
And mounting options, I'm going to give it the same thing we had last week, which I gave it a 3. You gave it a 5. There's no reason that this thing shouldn't have legs.
It's been so long, and this is a 9-inch or 10-inch.
You can take this one out of the way here. So this thing, man, should have legs by now. It's been out for over a decade. Everybody knows that they would like to see legs. It doesn't have one. I have no idea why. I think in Europe, where it's actually made, there's different standards on what can have legs be mounted over water, and that might be the reason why. But there's still no reason in America we don't have that standard, so why not have legs here? I don't know.
An option.
It's super common for these types of lights.
Yep.
All right, and aesthetic appeal. Let's see it on the tank. Again, you can see why it's going to cover all the shadows, right? And again, I like lights that cover the whole tank. I can't help it.
I mean, because I've had this setup before in my past, this has some nostalgia for me. So that metal look or the length of the tank that matches the color of T5, what it does in the tank is really here. Like growth-wise, and you plug this thing in, you're going to get the growth. But I mean, we look at the tank itself, and it's it's flat. There is no shimmer in the T5s here.
It looks like there's not even water in there. And the
does.
fish are just like swimming around in space. I don't know.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah, so I'm going to give the same thing I had before, which is a 4, man. I can't not have a tank that doesn't have a sense of movement in it. Drives me absolutely crazy. The tank looks awesome. The corals look awesome.
Corals will grow.
Okay, and there is a theme here, actually, I think that's developing today, is that all the options that we picked today look stunning. That was not necessarily true last week.
No.
And so they all look kind of the same, and it means that some of the gold standards here are actually blending together, and we're hitting, and especially at this top end of the price range, you would hope to see that, actually.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Aesthetic appeal, I'm going to bump it up a half a point to 4.5 from year 4 because aesthetic appeal not only is just color and shimmer, but to me, like the growth of the corals. If I can get this green slimer to go crazy, if I can get these colonies, T5s will absolutely do that, especially the 6-bulb one. So I'll give it a half a point.
I can't help it. I love the results that it would produce.
Yep.
But I can't have a tank that has no shimmer. I just can't.
It does. They're floating in space.
Yeah, it looks. Once I know what good looks like, this one doesn't hit it for me anymore.
Yep.
So you can add the shimmer later on. So what tanks would you use this on?
Well, this is 6 bulbs, so based off of par testing, solid mixed tank option because it will hit some of those higher par numbers in the top and a little lower. So for your lower demand LPS softies in the bottom. I might I could consider an 8 bulb, and if I wanted to only do like LPS or mixed tank, just not use the channel that only runs 2 bulbs and make it a 6 bulb, but grow with me. But I think this is a solid option for a mixed tank, and they scale with the size of your tank, upwards of like 60 inches, I think.
All right, because we already talked about this, I concur.
Yep.
All right, next one, Philips Coral Care. I bet you've been waiting for this one because we actually haven't talked about it.
What was the score on that last one?
The score.
5.83. So it puts it in 4th place, just under Reef Brite.
All right, there we go.
Cool.
All right, Philips Coral Care. Where is that guy here?
This one.
Oh, here he is. Will you take that out of the way?
You got that? Oh, that's a heavy load.
This guy
if you
is
can tell by the
heavy.
grunting, this thing is heavy.
All right, there we go. Okay, so this one is brand new. Most of you have not even heard us talk about this one yet in person.
No.
So there's high hopes attached to it, and we'll have some conversation about whether or not I achieved it. And so straight off the bat, we'll give it price per par is $2.16. So I'm going to tell you at $8.99 plus the cost of the controller, which is like another $150, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Is that the right number?
I believe it's close to that.
Somewhere around there. This is actually the most expensive light module that we have here. I think on the market potentially.
It's close. I think the Orphic is also in that like
Oh, it is. You're
1,100
correct.
plus a gateway. So I think if you add them both together, they are both. Like,
You are correct.
yeah.
So it's amongst the most expensive options out there, but price per par, it actually came in much lower.
Yeah, so we get a 4.5 for the cost per par on this guy, but go back to that cost per par page. Let's look at something real quick. This will be a theme here you'll see when we talk about the Philips Coral Care is you have 417 total average par here, but this is drastically different than how you would actually use it in your tank, where you're going to lose par, based on your settings, in which case it brings up that cost per par.
It's good to note that actually. So when some of these things you can run at 100% because the balance of LEDs makes sense. It looks nice at all channels at 100%.
Yep.
In this case, a lot of people are going to turn down half of the LEDs or all the white ones down like 70%, meaning you're going to operate at 30. So the cost per par is a little deceiving. And if you say cost per par they're actually going to use, it's actually significantly higher.
Yep.
So that is true, man. That's a good point to bring up. All right. So in terms of spread, what are you going to give it?
I had high hopes for this one because this is almost the size of a 24 by 24 inch cube. It's like an 18 by 18. In which case, this super large panel style. I thought that we thought this was the wave of the future, but actually the spread didn't turn. Here I go explaining why. But 6.78.
6.78. Whoa, man, that's finite. So I'm going to go from a spread perspective, I'll give it a solid 7.
Okay.
All right. So here's the thing. Let's look at it. So it's 503 in the center, 296 on the outside edges. It fell off 42%, 60 or 58% as on the outside as in the center. All right. Not bad, right?
Yeah.
It's about the same as some of the other things that we saw today, except for I know there's better out there, and the cost is kind of not reflected in there.
Yeah.
So, and you know what it is actually? It's not that it's bad performance. It's just my expectations were super duper high. Right? Because it's this big panel. It's from Philips. I really liked the last one.
It's frosted. It's diffused like we would hope for.
I thought this was going to be the T5 killer of all things, and it turns out that there's other lights that came out that actually have better spread at similar mounter heights. So it's not that it's not good. I just I wanted this one to be great.
Yeah,
right.
I did too.
And it's good, is what it is.
Yeah.
So in terms of spread. And so then, what would you like to see for improved spread from it, I guess?
I mean, so this panel is like 11 by 12, almost a foot by foot panel. So I don't know if they could make it a larger than that. I mean, there's probably electronics and whatnot going on in here. I don't know. Like the diffused lens, you maybe cuts away some of the par. Spread wise, though, how could I improve it? Make a wider panel?
I'm with you on actually the first part. I think this could be done. I think you could use the whole array. So there's like 1.5 inches around the whole thing, and if we use that 1.5 inches to distribute the LEDs, we'd probably get the best in class
60s.
performance.
Yeah, mid 60s, upper 60s, 70s.
Yeah, I think if you spread them out, you would get it. So I think that's a way that we can see that improved in the future. And so in terms of spectrum, what did you give it?
Spectrum was okay. Spectrum. I'm going to just not explain away my answer, just give a rapid fire 7.75.
I'm going to give it a 8.9.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little higher.
Good
I don't know. Now I'm looking at it right here, so I don't know.
Maybe we should
let's
look
see it.
before we
So
give
this is what our custom spectrum, when we turned it down to, I think it was 30% whites down, right?
Yeah, so it's 100 white and 100 blue when the sliders, you'll see here in the control here in a bit. But when you slide that over to get more blues, because halfway is just too white, this is the spectrum you come up with. And I mean, it fills out that ATI Blue Plus pretty dang well.
You'll see though, see how much more green there is in here.
There is.
And that is representative if it is a wider looking light.
Yes.
It is, no question, a wider looking light, even at only 30% whites.
I think they call it like a more natural reef light, which, if you go look at the ocean, you're diving in the ocean, this thing does that.
No question.
It makes it look like you are in the ocean or your tank's from the ocean.
Well, and the reality is if you go like snorkeling or diving, like it's overtly blue, but not as fluorescent, and like it just doesn't
It's
look
not a reef
the same.
tank. Yeah,
it's not a reef tank. So our reef tanks do look different than the ocean.
For sure.
But this one will make it look more like the ocean. If you find that desirable, that one's for you. A lot of people kind of like it more blue and like fluorescent pop color to it. But blending, let's see it.
So it's got the diffuser on there, so we had high hopes for this one as well. And actually, it's pretty dang good.
This is one of the things that I knew it would perform well in. That diffused look and grid of LEDs, and then it has like this acrylic shield. You can't really see it inside of here, but like it's perfect blending. So if you look at all the performance of the spectrum here, for me, I give it, it's going to grow coral. It'll look decent. I'm disappointed I had to turn the whites down so much, but the blending of it is, this is actually one of the originators of the conversation of spectrum blending for me, and like the aha moment of the like decreased performance of the healthier coral by blasting it with all kinds of crazy spectrum beams, little laser beams at different peaks, instead of providing a uniform spectrum like our T5s did. And if you look at the technology that produced the best results, you emulate it, and this did that. So this is like, for me, one of the originators of that conversation.
So improvements on the spectrum, we talked about get rid of some of the whites, bring in more of the blue, so I can actually use more of this light in my tank. That was kind of the detractor on its output par-wise at a usable spectrum or something that you would use, and a little bit on the UV side.
Yeah, so I'd do the same thing. I'd add a little bit of violet, a little bit of UV to it, but I would get rid of all those useless whites.
There's a lot of whites we don't
there's
use.
There's just too many white LEDs in there that I paid for and gonna scale down. And this is the part we haven't talked about yet, is in your Investigates, we didn't actually hit the SPS numbers in the whole tank with it. Yeah, so like it will work on an SPS tank, but those numbers are designed to hit like an ideal pocket. Like you're asking me now, like, will things survive when you ask these questions of us?
Yeah.
You're asking like what ideal performance is, and there's a lot of lights out there that hit it. This one just didn't, and it would have if we replaced some of those whites that we're turning down with blues.
Sure.
So
it would have been a big winner of the year if it hit that.
If it did that,
I know
I might have used it myself. If it did that, but like I'm having a hard time justifying the cost, and I can't even get some of the other things. So if it did that, I would have. But yeah, change out some of those whites for the blues, and actually this would be a big winner.
Control next. Let's talk about control. And I think right off the bat, I'm going to give this one a 8.2.
Oh man, this one's. I'm actually going to dock it and go 6.2.
Okay. All right. All right. That's fair.
Okay.
You might sway me to go higher or lower, but.
All right. So I'm going to sway. Right. So if you're going to control this thing, you're going to use this box. I think it's $150. Adam, maybe you can confirm. It's $150. It will control, I believe, up to 4 more lights.
Yeah, it is big.
It's a big box. It's got a wire. That means that every one of these things needs to be wired to it. It itself, I think, is Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, goes direct to your phone, and you can set it up. There's a phone app in it. There's no onboard controls, so you have to buy the box. You have to control through it. You have to run the wires to it.
You're reminding me.
That means there's a power cord and a wire to each one of them. Here's the thing that I like that some people will hate.
Okay.
Is there's a slider bar.
Oh, check this out.
Yeah, so here you go. Yeah, we can see it actually.
So
you just slide from white
to the left, it gets white.
Orange or yellow, and then you slide it the other direction and it gets bluer.
Here comes the
So this is about where somebody'd use it.
Right.
You know, I wish we could pause it there actually, but you can kind of see, you can decide for yourself where you'd use it, but there's only 2 bars. There's an intensity and there's a color temperature. And I guarantee you'll grow coral with any of those as long as you're probably not on the extremes of both ends. And actually the blue end you probably would.
So it was that 2-part control. I need to just change color to what looks good to my eye. I just need to change light intensity to meet my par demands. That's what kind of put me at my 8.2. But now that we're talking about, that's one of the things that I've talked about in other lights, like the Orfix or some of these other ones, that I have to get something to control it because there's nothing on board. That drops it down for me, because personally I just want that thing. I want to open the box, put it on my tank, and be able to run it and set it up.
So this is one of those things where I think a lot of people probably have inaccurate perception, right? So the perception would be, if you give me all those sliders and full control and all the advanced modes and all that stuff, that that is a more advanced light, they produce something better. It's not true. And so when you look at the optics leading companies, like people who produce lighting for all kinds of industries, Philips being one of them, Kessil being another one, they're not just reef tank companies. They provide lighting that grows all kinds of organisms. And light for studios, for all kinds of different things, for very specific purposes. They design these lights, and then they give you controls that allow you to be successful within that range. They have designed it to do its intended purpose. The ability to just change the color and not mess it up in a way that would hurt your coral is a benefit. And it's in this case, it is indicative of a company that knows what it's doing and going after a better performance for the end user, not allowing them to not succeed.
Yeah, so that 2-part control, all I have to do, I mean, that's one thing I love about that we all love about the Kessil. Turn this thing to where it looks good to you, and don't worry about what if you're in that right spectrum range, or if your reds are too high or too low or what have you. So I had an 8.2 mainly because of the ease of control when you get it controlled. I'm going to go down to a 7.4 because of I can't do anything but turn it on until I get this control box.
All right. So here's my main point, man. This thing is a beast. It's heavy. It's big. There had to be a way to incorporate, a Wi-Fi chip into this thing. Because I know this because all of their competitors did. Right? And so to have the extra wires and extra control box it's hard for me to swallow. And that's part of the reason I rated it a little lower.
Okay.
All right. So mounting options. All right. So what are you going to give it for mounting options?
This one gets a low 4.7 for me because right now, really, I mean, there's only one, and even that one, you have to be wary about. This thing is heavy, and it brings this whole dynamic of mounting that some lights we don't even need to consider. I can't have a bracket that is on my tank because this weight will put stress on my tank. Finding something to come over the back or even against my drywall, I better have some really solid, I have to go into studs or make sure I have some really solid wall anchors. I might even not even consider it unless there was studs back there to mount the thing. Ceiling I have to mount from, and that's drywall too, so I have to come up with an option, you know, that to counteract the weight. I do give it some points because I do like their style here. You can see it in the picture. I do like their hanging bracket style. It's a push buttons on the side, you know, type of hasp. I do like that, but yeah, that's where I'm at. 4.7 for me.
All right, I'm gonna have to give it the lowest of the that I could rate it, man, because everything comes with a hanging bracket of some kind, you know. So it's hard for me to give bonus points for that. So I'm gonna give it like a 2 from a mounting option, especially from a company like Philips, where I expect, you know, a different kind of scale of stuff. Yeah. So here's the reason why, man. It kind of mirrors what you just said, which is this thing is 20 pounds, right? And the reason it's 20 pounds, by the way, is it's passively cooled.
Yeah, so there is no fan noise.
No fan, it's silent, that's awesome. But it's 20 pounds, man. And so if I had a whole bunch of these things, you know, if I got 6 or 3 of them on my tank, I got 60 pounds hanging from the ceiling. And it's not only that, it's like if I, you know, hit the button wrong and it zips down a little bit, 60 pounds like at movement now, right? Okay, so here's the thing. There's no leg option, there's no wall bracket option, there's no option. The only option is hang it from your ceiling. And in this case, in almost every case, I'm okay with using like toggle bolts, drill a hole, pop the little guy open, and we're good to go. In this case, I wouldn't do it. And so I'd probably have to get a piece of wood, route the edge so it looks nice, and then paint it the color of my ceiling, and then bolt that into studs, and then put this into the bar that crosses multiple studs. Yeah. So this is, because you're hanging so much weight, especially over a glass box, that not just it will fall in water. I think it's like partially like waterproof, and also I don't think it has 110 going into it. Right. But like this thing hits my glass as it's falling.
The whole thing's gone.
Catastrophic event, right? So this thing needs legs. This thing needs a way to mount from the wall. It needs a good option for hanging it. They need to address the fact that it's heavy.
Yes.
Yes.
Brutal honesty,
all right.
folks.
Well, I don't know, man. Like, this was the one, man. Like what is that Star Wars thing, man? Like, you were supposed to be the one, you know, and like it could be. It's so close, you know. So I don't know. All right. So aesthetic appeal. What do you give it?
So over an 18 by 18 tank or a 24 by 24 tank, I think this thing looks awesome.
It was over your tank for a little bit.
Yeah, it was, and I thought I was going to use it. Shimmer-wise, I also like the shimmer too. I'm going to go ahead and put this one at a 7. I like the look of this thing. You know, for me, I do like that industrial look. I do like, you know, we've been saying it with all the lights that match the size of the tank. It just looks good you know, when it matches the size of the tank. It's black. It has no sound, so that's aesthetic appeal for me too. And it actually looks pretty good in the tank.
All right, so I'm gonna give it. You're doing a horrible job of giving it a number.
Why?
A number that comes all the goodies, as do I. So I got to give a number and then
I know. All right. It's tough.
Yeah. So for me, I'm gonna do a aesthetic appeal. I'll give it a 7.
Okay.
All right. So let's see it on the outside of the tank.
All right. So I mean, here you go. This thing looks good over the tank.
I'm going to dock it a little bit because it's got the big coil of cord that comes there. I wish we could find a way to clip those things a little easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. It's got 2 cords coming off it. It's black. It's about the size of the tank. Looks nice. It looks like it's machined well. Like this is a high quality, component over a nice tank.
Yeah, part of aesthetic appeal for those of you who are so worried about the fan noise on their lights, and some of them can be pretty loud. Aesthetic appeal does play a role here in that there's 0.
All right.
Just like the XHO stuff too.
Okay, so looking at the tank itself, what does it look like?
It's a muted shimmer. It's kind of in between your T5 and, you know, like we saw with the XHOs.
This is so T5-y to me. And I was actually surprised. Dave, if you can come back to us for a second. So right here, if you can see that they polished the glass here, 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 and here, so that diffused look. And I don't know if they polished it or they just isn't diffused there. But there's 4 areas that it isn't diffused so that you could add some shimmer back in. And I actually thought, and it might be because we turned those ones down. So if you get an individual control over maybe just those 4, and you could add more shimmer in, that'd be pretty cool.
That'd be pretty cool.
But you can look at the video here, and you can see there's not a lot of sense of movement
Pretty
here.
muted. I keep looking underneath the caps for that sense of shimmer, and sort of on the back wall along the seam. Yeah, like I said, it looks to me a combination between the T5 flat and the XHO not so harsh.
It's a very T5y look.
Yep.
And so overall, all right. So
color-wise in the tank, it does pretty good. But again, you're getting rid of 70% of your whites.
Again, you're seeing a theme here that a lot of these lights make this tank look awesome. So a lot of these high-end lights in the more expensive range are actually making the tank look really nice.
Yep.
All right. So where would you use it?
Mixed tank. In 24 by 24, mixed tank using 2 of them in 48 by 24. We kind of covered that in my Investigates video. If I would supplement it, with T5s or Reef Brite XHOs to try to bring in some more par. Maybe I have the space, like a tank that's 36 inches front to back or 30 inches front to back, where I can add maybe 2 strips on one side, 2 strips on the other. I might actually hit some of those higher par numbers, that dominated system par numbers. But for me, it is, well, I'm not using it in my office. I thought I would, but I do need the oomph. So it's a really expensive LPS softy and sort of mixed tank light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm gonna come to the same conclusion. So you said something about like if I need a low maintenance light earlier.
Yeah, so I mean that was one of the selling points for those people. Like if it's in this hood that you just don't have a lot of access to, if it's in wall and up, and you just like there's no moving parts on here, there's no fan. The maintenance on this is super minimal.
Longevity, Philips quality, no fans, like nothing to maintenance. Just put it in there and forget about it.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, an area where I use it. But in general, I am going to have to agree that for the price point, there aren't a lot of applications where I would install this. If they made just a few of the tweaks that we talked about, it could be the one.
It could.
I don't know. It was really close. But
there you go.
In the end, I don't know. The price point is a hard mix for me. All right, so what's the next one?
That takes it. It takes the number 4 spot. So it took it away from the 6 bulb. It spread the difference between ATI and Reef Brite. You'll see a graphic at the beginning of next week where everything rates after today.
6.14.
6.14.
All right, that's
for those
the average.
Keeping track.
All right, sweet.
Next
all right, we
one.
got one last one here, and this one's actually been a big, interesting one too this year.
Yeah, this was pretty cool.
The Kessil AP9X.
The AP9X.
Okay, this one I thought I was going to use on my tank too.
I had some high hopes for it.
And then I was mad at it because it didn't do what I thought it was going to do.
Then you're not mad at it.
Yeah, now I realize I had unrealistic expectations and that it's not designed for me, it's designed for somebody else. And this is the theory, or the thing I keep learning about Kessil.
Right tool, right job.
Right tool, right job with Kessil. And they're doing things that other people aren't doing and designing things and allowing you to pick a tool for the right job. So you're going to see that here in a second.
Yes.
I thought this was for me. I found out it wasn't. Mad at it. Now I'm kind of interested to see what you guys think.
So cost per par here, we're looking at an average par of $392, cost at $839. So $2.14 cost per par. So that is the cheapest of the Kessil's cost per par that we've seen so far. Mm-hmm. And in this, that makes it a 5.0. We are at the halfway point between all of the lights that we're going through.
So that's actually an interesting point because it shares many of the characteristics of the absolute most expensive options, but it's coming at the mid price point in terms of cost per par.
Yeah,
so
super
interesting conundrum here. All right, so we don't have our sheets for this one.
No, but we're going on spread on this.
I'll just follow this along here.
We're going to wing it.
All right, so in terms of spread, what do you give it?
So,
number only.
I know. I could easily get into a debate on why. I have to give it a 7.5.
7.5 in terms of spread. I'm going to give it somewhere between 3 and a 10. So
good luck, Adam.
Good. Yeah, have that one out and give it to me. I say so. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'll give it the same 7.2. In terms of spread.
Okay.
But this is a case where you need to know what it's going to do, otherwise it's not going to work.
Yeah,
for you.
it has a purpose, and this is why. I mean, look at the next slide here. It had a 10-inch mounting height, which 2 inches higher than the Kessil A360X. This is not two A360Xs put together. And we can see that by the heat map. There's this distinct rectangular pattern here. And you see a center 494, a 259, 52%. But a lot of that light, if we were to shrink that down into a rectangular type of measurement, this would have spread like left to right. Tons of spread, but it's intended for it.
Yeah, so those numbers are a little deceiving there, because that whole yellow ring says 259 on it, but if you look in the back, it's like 150 in the front, it's like 210, and the sides are like close to 300.
Yeah.
And you can see there's a distinct rectangular pattern there. And at first, my reaction to that was like, this is terrible. Like it created this rectangular light that doesn't fill it out.
Well,
right?
I mean, based on the testing that we do, like a 24-inch by 24-inch square cube, a 48 by 24-inch, basically 2 square cubes put together, this thing had no chance if we judge it on that.
Okay, so that is the thing. So talking to them, this is my expectations actually, is I wanted to use this because it's super low profile. I knew I was going to use Kessils in this case because nothing provides the shimmer, like halide type shimmer that we're going to discuss in any of these lights. None of them are going to do that. So I'm like, oh, sweet. So I'll be able to use these things, and instead of installing multiples of the like 360Xs, I'll be able to use this guy who's much lower profile. There's only one cord. I don't have to daisy chain. I don't have to buy the little Wi-Fi dongle for it, and like it's just going to be two 360Xs, and I'll be way better off. It's not though. And so what they did with this guy is tried intentionally to make a rectangular shaped light, and you can see it in the optics, you can see it in the reflector, you can see it in the data. They made a light that distributes in a rectangle. And you might say like, oh, well, your 120-gallon tank is a rectangle. It's not. It is, but it's really 2 cubes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's 2 cubes sitting next to each other. A rectangle is like
your
a 90-gallon.
Yeah, your 40 breeder, your 90-gallon, your 55, your 75. And those are like 18 inches front to back, most cases, and long.
I think like a 110. So like a lot of different tanks out there are not trying to illuminate a square grid.
And you have a tool for that.
Yeah. If you were trying to illuminate, like for my tank, I had a 90-gallon as my first tank. This would be a better option than the 360Xs, because the 360s would spill light out in the front and the back of it. Yeah. Right? This one will keep the light in it.
Yep.
You know? And so, you know, it's just, I learn something new every day, especially, it's not just the data, but how you apply the data. And that's why I said this is a 10 out of 10 in a certain instance. If you got a rectangular shaped area you're trying to illuminate, if you're trying to illuminate a square area, there's better options.
Yes.
That's just my opinion. That's how I would use it.
And Kessil has those options too. That's the best part.
All right, so we're going to split the difference there of...
You said these 3 and 10. What's the difference?
I'm going to change it. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go up to like a 8.7, understanding why you're going to use it and select this for the right tool. You wouldn't use this for the wrong job.
Good job, Kessil. All right, I'm still at a 7.5.
All right, so Spectrum here, not surprising.
No, so Spectrum, I think we can easily give this one a, for me, 9.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9. There's like a couple areas that could be a little bit better, but like on the coverage here, Spectrum will not be your problem. And not surprisingly, let's look at the blending from the 2 different light sources. Because they put them all under a single lens, the Spectrum blending is really, really good. You're not seeing it all blended all over the place. This is where their optics and approach to implementing the light actually pays off. So again, in this one, I'll give it a 9. I mean, I almost want to give it better, but 9's good.
Okay, I agree. I mean, I wish that peak was not so much 460 and probably a little shifted to the left. But I mean, we've given high marks for Kessil Spectrum the whole way through. This isn't any different.
You're right. I'm gonna go 8.85.
You just dropped.
Yep, I did. Okay. I'd like to see a little bit closer.
Oh.
Like so.
9.2.
All right, there you go.
All right, before we talk ourselves out of it.
Okay, so in terms of control,
I think you've heard this, from last week from the Kessil A360X. You heard it from the Aquatic Life T5 here. The only difference being here on this one is that the Wi-Fi is built in, which is phenomenal. I like this. I don't have to. I'm not tied to getting another controller. I mean, I can use the Spectral X. I can daisy chain, K-link these, multiples of these together. I will say this, and this is what gets that 9X more points. The AP700 was a bear to put together more than one light and toggle to use the Wi-Fi. They've made the improvements, and it shows in the 9X, so it does gain some points for me. And I just explained before I gave it a rating. Control-wise, this hits a lot of things for me because it's built in. I have to go ahead and give this one an 8.75.
Okay, if they put little knobbies on the top of it, like the 360X, I'd give it a 10 out of 10.
Okay.
Or really close anyway. So if they did that, I would do it. But because I have to go into my app, I'm going to give it a 8.9. Okay. And here's the thing. Again, they've given me the option to select, something Kessil Logic that works. I can't really screw it up. I mean, I guess catastrophically, if I wanted to, I could go add in the green and the red and mess it up if I really, I wasn't listening to anything.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the mix of LEDs in there doesn't allow you to screw this up. And that is the hallmark of a company that is building something to an application and sets you up for success. They don't just give you all the tools and you're off to the races. Good luck. I hope you don't kill any animals, but you will. So here's the thing. That is why for me, and I'll give it the 8.9.
8.9, I think you said.
All right, cool. So mounting options. This is again, man, one of the winners actually.
For you.
Oh. Yep.
For me, there's currently only one mounting option for this thing.
Okay.
And you're looking at it. This is it.
You can hang it, can you not?
I think you might be able to. Adam, can you hang this thing?
I don't know.
Okay. Oh, I'm surprised. I just made a couple of assumptions here because I haven't actually used it. I assumed you could hang it, and I assumed there's a little bracket like the AP900 that you could mount into
the AP700.
700 that you can mount into your hood.
It might be, but
I mean, Adam's going to find out the question.
Yeah, Adam's looking in real time. Mounting option. So it does have the best, in my opinion, the best mounting option from Kessil, the 90-degree gooseneck, the 90-degree Kessil A-arm. This is specific to the AP9X because it has that special bracket on the back of it. You can see here in the next shot. And the cool thing about this is, if you come back to Ryan here, what he's doing, it moves. It goes sideways, up and down. This wasn't an option before in some of the other ones. There is a hanging kit. Color me wrong.
There we go. Yeah, I assumed.
Adam has a hanging kit. So
right.
yeah, so it does have a hanging kit. I would use this one. And I don't, do you need legs? Do you need to bring this off? It's 10 inches off the side. This does it for me. I don't need anything else, and the cords get hidden here, so.
Yeah, where's the cord, guys? Can you see it? Because it exists, but it's hidden.
Favorite
and
feature.
as long as it's flat, man, you're looking at it from the front, you'll never see that cord. It goes into this bar and goes down. And so for me, almost everybody's going to use this because it's so easy to mount, so easy to go higher or lower just by screwing these two screws.
It's super
It mounts
simple.
on almost anything. It's really sleek, no cords. I'm going to give it. What did I already rate it?
I don't think we rated it.
All right, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10.
You're gonna give it a 10 out of 10.
It's just this is the best mounting option I have seen. Okay. It is super low profile. It adapts to so many tank styles and hides cords. I hate cords.
Okay, I like this. 10 inches is the optimal mounting height, which should give you enough room to get in your tank, but when you tighten that thing up, I'll hold it up like this, and I can tilt it up, I can bring it back down to where it was. So, all right, I mean, you convinced me, you gave it such a high mark for mounting options. I was corrected in that there is a hanging kit. 8.93.
Boom, 9.3. For what it's worth, I loosened up the screw there when I was wiggling,
Yeah,
so
thanks.
it's not all floppy. All right, so aesthetic appeal. What does it look like in the tank? This one's actually interesting. You're going to see that Kessil shimmer again, but you're also going to see what it looks like above the tank. So aesthetic appeal, just shooting right now. What do you give it? One number, no explanation. No
Everybody knows the rules. 7.3.
All right, I'm going to give it aesthetic appeal, thinking about the outside, inside, everything, and how low profile it is, and some shimmer. I'm going to give it 8.5.
Okay.
All right. So that's what it looks like. You can see the little bar, super low profile. You can't really see it. Even the light makes the light look. You can't see nice. You can't even see the cords or anything. You can see though, like right now, somebody's saying, you know what? I actually don't like this super low profile look. I liked those big fixtures that you were talking about either. Neither option is wrong. It's a personal preference.
Personal preference for sure. When it first came out, I was like, oh, spaceship look, which was kind of cool. But no, actually, now when you look at the heat map and you see, that it has a specific purpose, form matches function in that. So if I were to mount this over a 40 breeder, a 90, a 75, a 55, this would actually look pretty good. And it would cover a lot of that tank as a single unit. I do like the aesthetic appeal. Did I give it a number? Did we give it a number? We did. Yeah, I did. I said 7 point.
Oh, yes, I did. All right, so here's
Inside
the
the tank.
One of the things that's cool, actually, if you go back a second, because you're going to see that shimmer is pretty hard. But it doesn't look as hard when your face isn't like right up on it. So a lot of times you're looking at a tank, you're looking at it from 10 feet away. And so you can see it right now. It actually gives a really nice sense of movement, and it isn't like overpowering. And if I was looking at this thing from my sofa or my kitchen and it was on the wall, it would look really nice.
This is something that when your friends and family come over and they see your tank across the room, that shimmer, that brilliance just draws the eye. Like I am instantly looking at your tank.
I want to go see that. All right, so let's see what it looks like inside.
And if I didn't know any better, because like you and I said, we've seen every single shimmer almost on the planet here that you could put in a tank. So this is again personal desires, but
we're hanging.